on tonight.
When Americans are unified, there is nothing we cannot do. Nothing. No task is too great.
But will it be possible for Mr. Trump to unite the country? Talking Points does not think so. We'll tell you why.
We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it. Sell it.
Denzel Washington scorching the national media, and he's right. The press in America has become a disgrace. We'll have a special report.
Battleship Arizona, just action that shattered the mighty giant. And resting on the bottom, the great armored sea fighter is a fantastic tangle of twisted steel.
Also ahead today, the 75th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor bombing. We believe the Japanese back then were a lot like ISIS is today. Caution. You are about to enter the No Spin Zone. The factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Will Donald Trump be able to unite the country? That is the subject of the Today Time magazine. Then I took a swipe at him right on the cover saying, Donald Trump, president of the divided states of America. Time, perhaps the most politically correct publication in the country, clearly dislikes Mr. Trump. They had to make him person of the year, but obviously they did not want to do that. However, the magazine is correct in saying that the USA is a divided country. Mr. Trump claims that happened on President Obama's watch, and he'll bring everybody together. Talking Points is not sure that's possible. To illustrate the point, let's take a look at the nation's largest city, New York. In the presidential election, Hillary Clinton received nearly 79% of the vote here. Donald Trump, 18%. Big Apple, rock steady left. They remember that Trump actually said he might carry New York. That was never even remotely possible, and here's why. Unlike San Francisco, which is steeped in socialist ideology, New York City is basically a welfare state. The ethnic breakdown goes like this: 32% white, 29% Hispanic, 24% black, 14% Asian. You want diversity? Come to New York City. In addition, 38% of the population here is foreign-born. 17% not even citizens. So you are looking at a political situation where millions of New Yorkers are trying to survive in a very tough environment. Population of New York City is about 8.5 million, and many of them can't make a living. So the government must support them. Right now, New York City is approaching $100 billion in debt. City cannot possibly pay off that money. So it'll borrow more and depend on you, wherever you live, to bail us here in New York out. 20% of New York City residents are now receiving food stamps. That's 1.7 million people at a cost of $250 million a month. A month. Other assistance to residents, more than $100 million a month. 5% of the city's population is on disability. Cost, $252 million a month. Finally, 600,000 New Yorkers are receiving payments for public housing. That's 7% of the population. So you can see that New York City, the most powerful financial center in the world, is basically a dependency. And people receiving disability checks, housing supplements, food stamps, and other direct payments are not going to vote for Republicans ever. So this is a one-party city that will never embrace a guy like Donald Trump. This is what America has come to. Its largest city falling apart. There's little desire on the part of the liberal city government here to lift people out of welfare. Liberal politicians actually want dependency. For example, if the city were to investigate disability claims, they'd find many of them are completely bogus frauds. It's a racket. Everybody knows it. But when 80% of the voters continue to support the far-left vision, nothing is going to change. So even though Donald Trump is a hometown guy and believes he can bring America together, the heavy odds are he cannot. The welfare system in many places is simply too entrenched. And the welfare system is not going to make America great again. That's the memo. Now for the top story reaction, joining us from Austin, Texas, Carl Rove. Am I going wrong here, Mr. Rove?
Well, I agree with you that it's difficult to achieve unity. I mean, we look back at 1984 and Ronald Reagan, basically just less than 6 out of every 10 Americans supported his re-election, but 4 out of 10 voted for Walter Mondale. So even those popular presidents are not universally beloved and supported. But I do think it's important that President-elect Trump try, because that's what the country wants him to do. And the more that he focuses on doing things that spread prosperity everywhere and move America together forward, Americans will give him more credit. He'll get more political credit. He'll be able to achieve more of what he wants to do.
Okay.
So I think he's got to do that.
Nobody's saying don't make the effort, but it's a futile effort. Not here in New York City. Look, 80-20. Hillary over Trump. 80, and Trump's a hometown guy. Come on.
Yeah, well, I get that. But let's divorce the politics for a moment from what you were really talking about, which is New York having a welfare state in which so many people are dependent upon government. And look, he's got to work at that problem. We know that we can do better.
Wait. No. Look, you're in Texas. I'm here in New York City. I was born in New York City. You go to the Bronx and you go to the Brooklyn. All right? Those are the two real poverty-stricken boroughs. The culture is so entrenched. No matter what Trump does, no matter how many factories he brings back, no matter what he does, you're not going to break that culture. You're not.
I respectfully disagree. We saw when we passed welfare reform in the middle of the 90s all across this country, from New York to California, in big cities, small cities, and rural America, welfare reform by saying we're going to place limits on how long people could be on welfare, by making people work, by requiring them to work if they were able-bodied, that we move people from a life of dependency upon government to a life of independence. Some people, and look, every one of those people
here in New York City, by the way.
Every one of those people was precious to move from a life of dependency to what God really meant them to be, which was a free individual living a life of responsibility and dreaming big. But look, in the last 8 years, one of the most pernicious things that's happened in this country is that systematically and quietly, President Obama has undone a lot of what that welfare reform law did.
Absolutely.
By making it easier for people to get on food stamps and making it easier for them to get benefits, and you touched on the disability issue. That's not just a local problem. That's a federal problem, and this administration turned a blind eye to this disability problem with Social Security, SSI, until the federal judges stepped in and made them pay attention to it. So my point is this: I hope Donald Trump says, okay, I know how tough it's going to be, but I see in him, and particularly what he did in his campaign, a real interest in helping turn around America's central cities and big cities and giving people a shot, giving people a chance. He's doing that with an education secretary who believes in charters and choice. He's doing it with a housing and urban development cabinet secretary who grew up in public housing.
You're not going to get the people on the phony disability racket. And there are legions of
stop
them.
Stop them.
De Blasio, the local city government, and Cuomo, the Democratic governor of the state, not gonna stop them.
Maybe you ought to run for mayor against de Blasio here in the next election and make it an issue, because do you think that the people of the city of New York like being ripped off? Every one of those people's paying some kind of tax somewhere, sometime, and they're getting ripped off in order to support the dependency of people who ought to be out there working.
There are more people on the dole getting money than are being ripped off in the city, and that's the point I'm trying to make. You're paying in Austin, Texas, for us. You're paying for us. The city can never pay $100 billion, ever. And the feds keep pumping it in, grant in. What do you think's paying all that food stamp money? It's not the state, it's not the city, it's you in Austin, Texas. Yeah. Because this is so far out of control. Now, if Donald Trump can turn this around in here, his hometown, he's a genius. He'll go down with George Washington as one of the greatest presidents.
He needs to be bending the arc of policy to move the country, including New York City, in the right direction. That's what Americans want, and that's why they elected him, to bring about change. And change in cities like New York is an important part of that.
You've got to shed the light on the problem. That's what I tried to do tonight. Mr. Earl, thank you very much. Next on the Rundown, Denzel Washington scorching the national media. We'll hear what he has to say. And later, Miller on Donald Trump strong-arming some American corporations. Factors coming right back.
One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore. So what a responsibility you all have to tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth. We live in a society now where it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it. Sell it. Anything you practice, you'll get good at, including BS.
With that analyzed, Joe Concha, media reporter for The Hill. He's absolutely right, 100% right. But he gets treated well by the press, Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington, absolutely.
He one of the actors that's revered by the mainstream media. I wonder what set him off. I wonder what he's so angry about.
There was a fake news story, Bill, about Denzel Washington saying that he was now supporting Donald Trump.
Oh.
So he sees that, and he has a sense of humor about it, and no big deal. But I'm sure he feels the same way that many Americans do, Bill. And that is an AP survey that perfectly encapsulated what Denzel Washington said, which was one of the more poignant, precise, candid things that I've heard. 6% of the American has drug. That number was 72%.
Okay. So Washington himself was the victim of a phony news story, what they call fake news on the net, that said he was a Trump supporter, which he isn't. So that's what set him off on this statement right there. But the broader picture is that the national media has gone over the cliff after the Trump election. Do you agree with that?
They absolutely have, and it's because, I believe, Bill, because of WikiLeaks, where every fear that you had about the media colluding with campaigns, sharing stories in advance, quote approval in advance with campaigns, the Clinton campaign in this case, debate questions in advance. That was all proven out, and it wasn't speculation.
No, it was
on
email.
Paper.
Right.
Exactly.
To the Clinton people. CNN and NBC News got hurt the worst in WikiLeaks.
Agreed.
CNN with Donna Brazile feeding the Clinton campaign actual questions. And then a couple of guys working for NBC basically toting up to John Podesta, who was in charge of the Clinton campaign, going, can I ask this? Should I ask that? Was there anybody else who got embarrassed?
Politico shared 3 stories that you could see in WikiLeaks alone, and that's just one person's email, John Podesta's.
Right.
3 stories in advance with the Clinton campaign. Meaning,
Politico, the website.
Writers actually sending to Podesta, here's what I'm going to write. Is this okay?
You know, I've never, ever taken any news out of the internet. And I understand that Facebook now is the dominant news deliverer for the United States of America. More people get their news on Facebook than any place else.
Pew Research, fascinating study. Nearly half of American adults, get their news from Facebook. Now, let's be clear what Facebook does. They don't have a news team. They're not producing the content. They're doing what's called aggregating. They're taking from all these sources,
right,
legitimate and otherwise, and putting it up in their trending section, and that's where people are getting their news if their friends
they don't check it out.
Right. They need an editor or a team of editors there to make sure that news stories are legitimate, are on there, and the fake ones are flushed out. Mark Zuckerberg, I'm pretty sure, can afford it, but he's resisting against it.
Well, he got in trouble because he, all these aggregates were smashing conservatives. Somehow the aggregates weren't smashing the left. Final question for you. The damage that's been done to the American media's image because it was so pro-Hillary Clinton, all right? Do you think that's permanent damage to the Washington Post, the New York Times, vehicles like this? Is it permanent?
Depends on how you define permanent. From a profit perspective, no one's done better this year than the media as a whole when you talk about all these different places, because people are still clicking, even if the integrity is hurt. But and here's the thing, the integrity is hurt. We did a survey at the Hill. We counted up all the major newspaper endorsements for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. 57 papers endorsed Clinton, 2 endorsed Trump. Now, with that sort of balance, you would think that Clinton would win by 20 points and Donald Trump couldn't even get 200 electoral votes. He ends up getting more than 300, the most of any Republican in 30 years. So while the messenger is damaged, the American people know this.
Right.
And they're not trusting it.
Credibility is gone.
Right, and that's why Trump was able to win, because
I think that's true. I don't think people, as Denzel Washington said, you read the newspaper, you're misinformed.
Right.
And I think they know they're misinformed, they're not getting the truth.
But social media allows you to fact check and allows you to do a lot of
Yeah,
things.
but that's a lot of burden. People are busy, they're earning a living, and they have families.
True. Hey, I got an idea for you, by the way, for your killing books.
Yeah.
James R. Hoffa. Wouldn't that be a great killing book, even though we don't know how he died?
I do.
You do?
Joe
Cool.
Conch, everybody.
Perfect book.
There he is. There you go. Directly ahead, talking about misinformation, stunning deceit by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Where do you hear this? Later, Tomi, Lahren, and Dennis Miller. A report on hate crimes. Left-wing group was more than happy to discuss hate crimes against minorities, but totally ignored the white factor in the equation. So now to explain further, Monica Crowley. It's a little bit misleading for me to say hate crimes. This was a survey about teachers. They asked teachers, have you heard any invective, hateful stuff directed to students? And if so, which students? And what did they find?
Well, the Southern Poverty Law Center partnered with the American Federation of Teachers,
Right.
which is a big national teachers union, formally endorsed Hillary Clinton.
Right.
They sent out this online questionnaire to 1.6 million, mostly Democratic members. This was an online survey, wholly unscientific because it was self-selecting.
Okay.
They got 10,000 responses back. They claimed that 40% of those surveyed said yes, that they had heard minority students, Muslim students, immigrant students getting harassed and
Being
intimidated.
disparaged.
Correct.
Okay.
What
So
they
let me-
didn't tell you.
Not too
Okay.
fast. Not too fast. So 1.6 went out. Only 10,000 came back.
Correct.
That's a danger sign right there. And in the 10,000, 40% of those who answered said, yes, I've heard disparagement toward minorities or Muslims. But there was no mention of white students.
That's right. Now, they did ask that question in the survey. So when they released the findings, what they didn't tell you is that 20% came back and said, we had heard and it had been reported to us that white students were subject to this kind of intimidation.
Yeah, like
and
if you
slurs.
like Trump or something like that.
Correct.
So 40% to minorities, 20% to whites, but no mention of the 20% by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So we know that the study was skewed. Here's what they said, by the way. We asked them for a statement. We did not highlight the statistic in the report because it paled, talking about white people, pardon the pun, in comparison to the reports of minority children being intimidated. So that's ridiculous because if it's a report, you report everything, and then it's double. So you make your point. They just didn't want any mention.
That's right. And based on the numbers, on the
Right.
10,000 that responded, you're talking 4,000 students, minority students, claim that they were harassed. 2,000, if these numbers are to be believed,
Right.
of white students and or Trump supporters. were
Embarrassing,
harassed.
another embarrassing thing. But Southern Poverty Law Center used to do good work. It's now a political organization. Now, Ms. Monica has been interviewing over at Trump Tower for something. And I'm not going to embarrass you and ask you what or anything like that. But I am going to ask you this question. Why would any human being, not just Monica Crowley, any human being want to be the White House press secretary? Really? I mean, you know Tony Snow, the late Tony Snow.
Yes, I know him
at
well.
it. Brilliant at it. And I used to
Yes.
go, Snow, how can you stand there every day when you know these people are just trying to kick the living daylights out of your boss,
Yeah.
which will be the same thing with Trump.
And our colleague Dana Perino did it brilliantly
She did it
as
very
well.
well.
Look, if you are representing a Republican president, it's always a tougher job. It's hell on earth anyway, regardless of who the president
Why
is.
would anybody want to do it?
Well, look, first of all, serving the president. As president, you believe in his policies and his agenda. You want to help him communicate that message to the American people, to the world, also to serve your country. I mean, I'm a true patriot, and look,
All right,
a lot
you
of
wanna
talented
serve your
people
country.
talking about a lot of different positions.
Okay. Now, you worked with Richard Nixon for years.
During the last years of his life.
Okay, so you understand the process and all, and then the Trump people over there, they know that. But if you do take a job as a White House press spokesperson, you have to say what they tell you to say. Remember Larry Speaks and Nixon, I think, was going to punch him. Wasn't that Larry Speaks?
Ron Ziegler, was Richard Nixon's
I
press
thought
secretary.
Nixon was going to be pushed him and punching him.
It is a very tough job.
Very
Maybe
tough.
apart from being president himself, probably press secretary is the toughest job. But when you believe in the policies, you believe in the agenda, and you believe in the man at the top, then I think you go out there with a certain passion.
Would you be confrontational out there if you got that job? Would you say,
Well, let's
"Listen,
be
you
clear. We're not.
pinhead." You're distorting
Yeah,
everything?
I mean, this is one of many jobs that a lot of people are being considered
Sure.
for. But look, I think Donald Trump is going to come in and smash every existing model, including diplomacy, including economics, and including dealing with press. And the one thing that I would advise Donald Trump to do in going over the heads of the elite media, which he has already done so well, is his first press conference as president should be with regular Americans. Forget the New York Times.
Just let
forget
the folks come
Washington.
in?
Let the folks come in
Yeah.
or go to them and allow them to ask the questions. And by the way, Richard Nixon used to give regional press conferences. So he dealt with regional press, local press, and they really appreciated that as well. So there are different models, and I think
Well, we'll
Trump
miss
is
you.
going to rewrite the book.
If you,
No, I'm not
if you're
going
in there,
I'm not going
no.
anywhere yet, Bill
Okay.
O'Reilly.
And if they hire Laura Ingraham, I mean, she's going to bring a bazooka she can carry.
She would be amazing,
Yeah, I mean,
amazing in that job.
You'd have to charge money to see her with the press. That would be very good. All right, Monica Crowley, everybody, plenty more heads. Fact and moves along this evening. Young conservative woman really annoying the American left. We'll talk with Tomi Lahren and Miller on Trump's strong-arming American corporations. Also, Madonna blaming women for Mr. Trump's election. I hope you stay tuned for those reports. Unresolved problem segment tonight, being conservative in the media. 24-year-old Tomi Lahren, who works at The Blaze, has been appearing on some far-left programs.
I've never looked down on someone because of their skin color. To me, true diversity is diversity of thought, not diversity of color. I don't see color. I go after Hillary Clinton and she's white as they come.
You don't see color. So what do you do at the traffic lights?
Well, that was stupid. Ms. Lahren joins us now from Dallas. So how did you hook up with Glenn Beck's The Blaze?
So what do you do at the traffic lights?
Well, that was stupid. Ms. Lahren joins us now from Dallas. So how did you hook up with Glenn Beck's The Blaze?
Well, Bill, I went viral a while back, and I think it caught the attention of Mr. Glenn Beck and The Blaze, and we got a great network here, got a lot of diverse voices, as you well know, and he saw me, he thought I had a little bit of potential and a little bit of fire, so here I am.
All right, so you were at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, right? And,
Yes, sir.
and while you were there, you were doing political commentary on the internet?
I was doing a roundtable show for UNLV TV called The Scramble, and I hosted it and produced that as well. So I started at a very young age. I got my first talk show when I was 21 years old. That was out of San Diego, another independent network called One American News. I wanted an internship after The Blaze denied my internship, actually, Bill. And then here, about a year and a half later, I ended up right here at The Blaze, and now
All
they
right,
have to
so
pay me.
it's all internet driven. When I was coming up and I was your age, I was at Boston University, and then I went to Scranton, Pennsylvania, worked at a regular television station, and then moved up to Dallas and to Denver and back to New York. You went immediately to the net, did commentary. You're not a reporter. You're a commentator, correct? Conservative commentator.
Right, and I've used the internet to my advantage because I feel that you can reach out directly to your viewers there. You know, the mainstream media doesn't necessarily foster conservative voices and give it a platform like it deserves outside of Fox News and The Blaze. So sometimes you got to go directly online, and that's what I've been able to do. And, you know, they love me or they hate me, they're watching me.
Now, how did you become a conservative? You're from South Dakota. That's a conservative state. Were you raised in a family of conservatives?
A family of conservatives, but more so than that, just a family of hardworking Americans. I grew up knowing that if I wanted to achieve something in life, I was going to have to do it myself. I was going to have to pull myself up by my bootstraps and go get it. And that, to me, lends itself to the conservative worldview and school of thought. So it's more hardworking than just growing up in a red state.
How old were you when you started to formulate a political opinion?
I don't know. When did I start talking? I guess
So
that
you were
would
always
be the answer.
political. Your parents political people. Always in that milieu.
My parents are conservatives, but not necessarily political. I like the art of debate. I like the art of conversation, and I also like to pick apart the mainstream media because I think that in large part they cater to the coasts, and there's a large section of middle America that is ignored. And we have viewpoints and opinions and voices as well, as evidenced by this presidential election, and they're just starting to hear the silent majority get a little louder.
Why do you think so many people your age are on the left?
Well, first of all, they go to liberal institutions, as we've seen time and time again. That's where the indoctrination begins. It really doesn't matter what you experienced in childhood, whether your parents are liberal or conservative. You go to a public university and you're going to be indoctrinated one way or the other. I went to UNLV. I witnessed that. I experienced that. So a lot of people, they take that narrative that the left feeds us as well, that conservatives and Republicans are bigoted, they're cold-hearted, they're racist, and so they want nothing to do with this party or this worldview. But that's because the liberals have controlled the narrative.
All right, so you believe that the younger generation, when they get to college, are kind of brainwashed. I don't know why they would accept that, though. Look, when I went to college, it was the Vietnam era. There were a lot of lefties there. They were trying to brainwash me and just say, hey, look, at least I did. I'm going to think for myself. Finally, you go on with this guy, Trevor Noah. This is The Daily Show. He took over for Jon Stewart. I was, a guest on Stewart's program on a number of occasions. You know that Noah is going to try to mock you, and his audience is there to support him. Does that bother you at all?
No, because someone has to have the guts to do it. I knew walking in that I was going to be walking into a crowd of people that were going to boo me and
cheer me. I didn't think you came off bad. I thought you made your points fairly articulately. But does it bother you personally that he's not going to give you a fair shake?
No, not at all, because you can't expect them to play fair. You can just get a little bit louder and have your voice be heard.
Fair?
Well, I don't expect any liberal show or comedy show or anything from the mainstream media to be fair. I've already accepted that, as I'm sure you know as well. They're not going to be fair. They're going to label you to high heaven. But
I expect them
keep going.
To be fair. I know they're not, but it is. Well, look, you did a nice job, and you're an interesting person, and we appreciate you coming on tonight very much as well.
Thanks so much, Bill.
We come right back. It will be Miller time. Madonna blaming women for Trump's election, and President-elect strong-arming companies. Miller is next.
One cable news show for 16 years. And counting.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly in the Miller Time segment. Tonight, it's clear Donald Trump is establishing a tough guy approach to U.S. companies that make else.
Companies are not going to leave the United States anymore without consequences. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
And joining us now from Santa Barbara, the sage of Southern California, Dennis Miller. So you agree with Trump putting the arm on these companies, saying, hey, if you take the jobs in Mexico or other places, you try to sell back here, 35%, we're going to charge as a tariff. You agree with that?
Well, first off, Billy, I want to say how touched I was to watch the Professor Henry Higgins moment you had there with your protege, Tomi, who, by the way, she was great in ABBA. I've always loved her since Bernardo, I think, was my favorite. So, and by the way, when you kept saying to her when I was in college, Bill, when you and I were in college, you could major in either numbers or letters, okay?
I majored in covered wagons. Try to go west.
Get out!
Right.
Get out! All right, Chill Wills. Now listen, here's the thing that's been happening to this country, Billy, is we're going to let air conditioners made by Carrier leave up to this point, but let Zika carriers into the country. And that's what we had to change, and I kind of like the Trumps changing it. I think that I might even think of leaving the country now that I know it's in such good hands. But I like Trump coming in and flipping the table. I think the whole game's screwed up, and so when he wants to lay a 35% tariff on him, I like it. Listen, I think you have to go big at this point. I think greatness in a president is determined by the historical deal of the cards they get, and I think this country's right on a cusp line right now, and Trump has a chance for greatness if he thinks big, and I would start playing the bully pulpit.
Okay, good. So you're not offended by it. Some conservatives say that's not really the free trade that we embrace, but you think that it helps him.
No, the conservatives have turned into Margaret Dumont whining next to Groucho at this point. Everybody's whiny. The guy hasn't even been in yet. He's introducing me to little Asian cats who are bringing $50 billion in. It's Itchy Coo Park, Billy. It's all so beautiful.
Now, out there in Santa Barbara, you must hear an awful lot of whining still about the election. And one of the top whiners is Madonna. And she said to Billboard magazine, quote, feels like women betrayed us. The percentage of women who voted for Trump was insanely high. Women hate women. That's what I think it is. Women's nature is not to support other women. and it's really sad. Men protect each other, women protect their men and children. Women turn inward, and men are more external. Madonna, so...
Trying to act like she's Margaret Thatcher. It's Madonna. The only reason Madonna is she only one who needed to be Madonna that badly. I don't take anything she says any serious, nor do I give a favor. She's just another person. I think she blew the election when she said she'd give sexual favors to anybody who voted for Hillary. You know, that's why they invented the phrase, yeah, don't do me any favors. Right there, I think that's where the election went south.
Wasn't she going to move to Madonna? She wasn't one of those movers, was she? I'm going someplace if Trump's elected? I don't know if she was.
No, I think she's lived overseas for years in England. Listen, it's a teachable lesson, as President Obama says. Madonna is a pop star. Whenever she talks about politics, and I've liked some of her songs over the year, not many, because they're a little mindless for me. You got to remember, when she was doing all that Vogue stuff, that frame was empty, if you know what I mean. But over the years, I've liked some of the songs, but it's not like I'm watching Madonna for political inspiration.
I know.
She's Madonna.
She's attacking fellow women. I was offended. I don't know.
She doesn't know what to do. Listen, Billy, I just got to point out these pop stars. Kanye has said so many wild things over the years. Why did they finally put him into an involuntary commitment? Because he said he would have voted for Trump. That was the final straw.
That was it. He was out of here.
Then he had to go away.
And a quick reminder, one of the hottest tickets in the country, the Spin Stops Here shows in 2017. See everybody in Tulsa, Oklahoma, January 13th at the BOK Center. Next night in Reading, Pennsylvania at the Santander Arena. Then Omaha, March 24th at the CenturyLink Arena. Next night, Tacoma Dome in Washington State. Finally, Westbury, Long Island on June 17th. Tickets make great Christmas and Hanukkah gifts. Check it all out on BelowRiley.com. Martha McCallum on deck. Joy Behar slanders Donald Trump. Right back with it. Back in the book segment tonight, did you see that? Today is the 75th anniversary of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, one of the most dastardly events in world history. More than 2,400 Americans were killed. Less than 4 years later, the USA had its revenge, defeating Japan after dropping 2 atomic bombs. Now, Japanese Prime Minister Abe wants to visit Pearl Harbor. Here to tell us more, Fox News anchor Martha McCallum. When will that visit be?
So that visit's going to be December 27th. Mm-hmm. The president, as most people know, goes to Hawaii over the Christmas holidays.
Right.
So it coincides with that. Shinzo Abe will visit. He will lay a wreath. He says that he wants to make it clear that Japan never wants to repeat the ravages of war that were seen on that day. It's a big deal. He's said to be wanting to close the chapter on World War II. A lot of people wonder why President Obama wasn't there today. It was a unique
that's why he wasn't there today.
Well,
he's going to do it.
It was, but I mean, it's a unique opportunity when you have the survivors, many of whom are in their 90s,
75th,
who will probably never, some of them, make it for a moment like this again. And I remember Ronald Reagan at Pointe du Hoc at the 40th anniversary of D-Day. It was an incredibly poignant moment. He spoke to them directly and admired them and respected
Pointe du Hoc being Normandy, France.
A missed opportunity, some would say.
Yes, but President Obama has never really embraced war culture, ever. In fact, in Killing a Rising Sun, as you may know, because we talked with him on the show this morning, I asked the 5 living presidents to write letters, and they're in the book, the 3 of them, Bush the elder, Bush the younger, and Jimmy Carter, whether they would have supported Harry Truman done the same thing. All 3 said yes.
Great question.
I do not believe Barack Obama would have. Now, it would be interesting to see if Abe, on the 27th of December, apologizes for that attack on Pearl Harbor and apologizes for all the pain and suffering that Japan directly caused during World War II.
Is not expected to. When President Obama visited Hiroshima, which was also a historic visit,
we don't have anything,
he did not do.
We don't have anything to apologize
for. But they see it perhaps as some sort of parody in that apologies are not required on either side, according to the way that the Japanese press has presented it, and I understand they have a different perspective on that.
You don't agree with that?
You know, I'm uncomfortable with generations later people apologizing for the acts, whatever it is. Things happen in a context based on history, which you have pointed out so clearly in your great book.
He should apologize.
About
the
why
Japanese
the bombs
Prime Minister, not just to America, but to China and Korea and to the Filipinos. What Japan did in World War II is akin, word of the day, to what Germany did. All right, the atrocities, the invasions, the fascism. There's no difference. It's just that Hitler was such a monster and covered in far more intensely than Hirohito and Tojo and the idiots over in Japan. Okay. I think he should apologize, but that's me.
We'll see.
The View. You
On to something completely different.
Have you ever been
I actually have been on The View.
I think I thought. All right, I've been on there. I'm never going on The View again.
Never.
Ever. Okay? And here's why. Roll the tape.
He's not right in the head. Donald Trump has never appeared stable to me when he has come on the show. He has not.
All right, so there is Behar saying the president-elect is not right in the head. Enough. All right, that's ABC News, by the way. These aren't some clowns running around the entertainment division. It's ABC News. That's a disgrace. Now, the ratings for that program are down fairly significantly.
They're down fairly significantly. Back in 2014, they were at 3.1 million. Now at about 2.8, they had an even bigger dip in between in 2015. But as you rightly point out, Bill, they moved them from the entertainment division over to the news division because they thought the comparison would be a little bit more favorable for them in the ratings. But they've lost about 300,000 viewers over the course of that time. And it's interesting also to note that Donald Trump has done very well in the recent polls that we saw. His favorable ratings are up 17 points since August, so they're out of step in hammering him across the board as they do on a daily basis.
I don't object to them hammering Donald Trump. Not at all, okay? They're liberal people. They want to hammer him. But to say that he's not right in the head, that's disrespectful to not only the president-elect, but to the whole process, all right? So that's it. No more View for me.
What could tempt you to come back on?
Nothing.
Nothing. You heard it here.
We'll never go there again. Martha McCallum, everybody.
Thank you.
Back to Tip of the Day, the latest on Bo Bergdahl. The tip, moments away. Update on the BillO'Reilly.com Christmas store. We have everything you guys could possibly want associated with the Factor. Look at those ties. Those are worn on the air. Those are the ties that I wear. Hat, mugs, placemats, floor mats, all right, and jackets and shirts and you name it, we have them. BillO'Reilly.com premium members get big discounts, and if you become a PM, you get a free book, any book you want, your choice. Give gift certificates, you can get 10 books if you give 10 gift certificates. So we hope you check the store out. All the money I get goes through charity. Now, the mail, Kathleen, no. North Reddington Beach, Florida. Can the president pardon a person who has not been tried and found guilty of a crime? Is not Bergdahl considered innocent until proven guilty? It is called a blanket pardon, Kathleen. You'll remember Richard Nixon was not charged with a crime, but received a blanket pardon from President Ford. Norm Gillespie, Morani, Utah. If President Obama pardons Bergdahl, two things must happen. Bergdahl must admit his crime, and the president has to admit he was wrong in glorifying him. So how are things in the land of Oz, Norm? The president doesn't have to do any of that. All he has to do is sign a pardon. Bill Clinton pardoned the biggest tax cheat in American history, Mark Rich, said absolutely nothing about it. Terry Hughes, Fort Pierre, South Dakota. Bill, you say don't be truculent when writing to the Factor. Well, you're truculent. Life is full of contradictions, Terry. Liam Alfred, Storrs, Connecticut. Hey, Bill, I'm a business student at the University of Connecticut. Any advice on how to deal with liberal professors? Avoid confrontation if you can, Liam. Students have no power. Unless the teacher is actively hurting you in some way, ignore their blather. It doesn't matter. Blather doesn't matter. Teresa Van Darsdale, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Our family is happy to hear that Legends and Lives of Patriots is returning on Sunday evening. Will the series be on DVD? Yes. The Old West, Legends and Lives, available now on DVD, and the Patriots will be there soon. Sunday's episode is a good one on the American Revolution's unsung heroes, African Americans. We hope you guys check that out. Laura Couch, Riverside, California. We bought Give Please a Chance for our 5-year-old granddaughter. We also purchased 10 copies for the preschool. Well, that's very nice of you guys, Laura. I hope the urchins like it. Jim Davidson, Honolulu. Bill, it's about time. A book like Killing the Rising Sun honored Americans in the Pacific War. It was full of horror. You bet it was. Somber day in Hawaii today. Thanks for reading my book, Jim. And a happy 77th anniversary to Mermay and Elmo Melicon in Winnie, Texas. 77 years they were married. They are married. They're still cooking. Wow. And Fine Time Fact Tip today, we have a podcast associated with The Factor. It's run by one of our producers, Robert Samuel. This week it features the inside story on Bo Bergdahl. So we hope you check that out on BillO'Reilly.com, iTunes, and other places that I have no idea what they are. Also, a book called All the Gallant Men, an American sailor's first-hand account of Pearl Harbor by Daniel Stratton. It's worth highlighting as a tip. The man was there. He's still alive. And if you really want to know what happened at Pearl Harbor, you might want to read that book. Factor tip of the day. And that is it for us tonight. Please check out the Fox News Factor website, different from BillO'Reilly.com. Also, we'd like you to spell all about the Factor from anywhere in the world. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com, O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. Name in town if you wish to opine. Word of the day, do not be a poltroon. Love that word. Now, tomorrow we'll be live because Trump again is speaking, this time in Iowa, I believe. And when Donald Trump speaks, anything could happen. So we will be here when anything happens. We hope you will be too. Again, thanks for watching us tonight. I am Bill O'Reilly. Please remember that the spin stops here. So we're definitely looking out for you.